Good morning, St. Lucia. Sorry we're late, but this podcast promises to be another scintillating one dealing with the issues that matter. In other words, the bread and butter issues that we all have been talking about and we all want to deal with. This roundtable discussion will focus on developments in tourism in St. Lucia as we celebrate yet another World Tourism Day. Tourism is one of the world's most important economic sectors. It employs 1 in 10 people on Earth and provides livelihoods to hundreds of millions more. Today is World Tourism Day under the banner Tourism and Green Investment. Since 1980, the United Nations World Tourism Organization has celebrated World Tourism Day as international observances on September 27th. This date was chosen as on that day in 1970, the statutes of the UNWTO were adopted. The adoption of these statutes is considered a milestone in global tourism. The purpose of this day is to raise awareness on the role of tourism within the international community and to demonstrate how it affects social, cultural, political, and economic values worldwide. Our conversationalists today are the esteemed former Minister of Tourism, Dominic Fede, former parliamentary rep for Soufrière Foncé Jacques, the tourism mecca in St. Lucia, Harold Stanislas, and we have with us taxi operator Sean Aubertine, and of course myself, Laura Japien-Noel, an Airbnb manager. And I can't wait to get to this aspect, this point in our discussion today, because there's so much to talk about, so much to delve into. Without further ado, by way of introduction, gentlemen, please tell us about yourselves and your speciality. Let's start with you, Dominic. Let's start with you. You know, you've been in the media for a while, so let's.
Before I came to this the public spotlight, I worked with sandals. I had 16 illustrious years there. I really learned a lot and was proud to be part of this global leader in tourism.
Wonderful.
I'm Sean Aubertine, taxi operator, been with Holiday Taxi, been on the executive of Holiday Taxi for a few years, been a floor member as well for over 20 years.
Thank you very much, Laura. Of course, I'm Harold Stanislas, former parliamentary representative for Soufrière Foncé Jacques, and I'm a tour operator as well.
Now, before I introduce myself further, these two gentlemen, Dominic and you guys are so bashful. Oh, I've just been working for 16 years in tourism. I know a little bit. You guys have been doing a lot in the past few years with regard to tourism. I mean, your constituency, your past constituency, I mean, is considered the mecca. If one can say, all of our sites and all of our go-to places are in your constituency. And of course, you pioneered, or not pioneered per se, but you pushed forward our tourism product in a major way. So I'm going to call on you guys to delve a little bit about that a little later on. But as for myself, I operate an Airbnb in the community of Labrie. So I am looking forward to what we call the community tourism aspect of things. I look forward to this season because COVID has really impacted us quite a bit the last 3 years, the last 2.5 years, and it really stopped our business just as it was about to take flight. So this season, I'm really looking forward to it, and I look forward to sharing my opinions and my thoughts on how we can go forward. As I said earlier, tourism employs 1 in every 10 people on Earth and provides livelihoods for hundreds of millions of more. And for some countries, it can represent over 20% of their GDP. Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah, Dominic, in the case of St. Lucia, it employs over 15,000 people and contributes to about 4,000 other indirect jobs, and it supports hundreds of local businesses. And based on preliminary results, we tourism satellite report while I was minister, and it suggests that at least 60% of our GDP focuses on tourism, and tourism contributes about 60% to the total economic output of our country. And another 20% of indirect contribution from tourism. So if tourism didn't exist, another 20% of our GDP would not have happened. So it's a major sector in St. Lucia, and it is very important to the development of our lives in so many ways.
And I'm glad you said that.
So many ways that we don't even imagine.
Because a lot of people do not appreciate nor understand the importance of tourism in our economy. I mean, our own PM, a former minister of tourism himself, has said that he didn't understand, he didn't know how important tourism is to St. Lucia. And I'm so glad you highlighted and articulated why tourism is so important. And for me, it allows people to experience some of the world's cultural and natural riches and brings people closer together, highlighting our common humanity. And one of the things that we know straight off the bat, you know, when people travel, what do they travel for? They travel to learn new cultures, to immerse themselves in new cultures, new experiences, indulge in foods and the drinks and the culture of the people. So I'm coming to you, Sean, as a taxi operator. How have you seen tourism really benefit? And you come from the community of Babno, right?
Yes, I do.
So tell me, combining your experience as a taxi driver and you coming from that rural community, because a lot of the times people say we don't feel the impacts of tourism in the smaller communities. How has tourism been for you?
All right, for me, when I came into the industry, it was sort of an experience that I wanted to go through, because we used to live in Babuno and go to Grosley. We used to see Friday night festival, Friday night activities go on, and we used to see all these tourists and try to figure out, you know, how could we get something out of that. So when I got the opportunity to come into the taxi industry, that's when I realized that for real, Babuno can benefit because we have attraction sites, we have different areas where we can bring guests, and persons in the community can get something out of that product. So we went through the Babuno community and we started little tours in the area, stopped at different little areas where we thought could have been attractions for tourism. And then a few years later, when Skyride and some other attractions came on board, you could have seen the big influence of tourism money-wise, because we had places like Pork City, where on an unusual day you'd find persons coming to Pork City, sit down there, enjoy eating some pork prepared by local persons. So that money aspect of it coming into Babuno did so well for the people in the community that everybody wanted to have a little something that when those tourists came, they too could have get a piece from the pie.
And I'm glad you talked about Pork City. I used to go up there when I lived in the city myself, and it was quite a different experience. I mean, you live in St. Lucia, you're St. Lucian, but it's always you feel, for me, I felt like a tourist. So I'm glad you touched on that, because there's also the aspect of local tourism. You know, it's not just people coming in, but us coming from different parts of the island and enjoying and experiencing different aspects, different parts of the island. What about you, coming from the Mecca, coming from Soufrière? How has tourism impacted your constituency and trickled down to the little man?
Very good question, Laura. As Dominic said earlier, tourism is basically the main artery of this economy in St. Lucia, and it is no different in Soufrière as the mecca of tourism, with all the major attraction sites and some of the premier resorts in St. Lucia are located in Soufrière. I would say that the majority of Soufriérians are directly employed in tourism and also indirectly benefit from tourism. There are many linkages in Soufrière with tourism. I mean, Soufrière is also the breadbasket of St. Lucia, and agriculture especially in the Fort Saint-Jacques area, in the Chaton-Belle, Belfond, Boisden areas. All of those communities benefit directly as a result of tourism in Soufrière. So tourism is the lifeline of Soufrière, and many persons in Soufrière have benefited tremendously from tourism in terms of employment, establishing their own small businesses, whether it's in accommodation, in food, in drinks, in arts, creativity, and so on. So it has been tremendously helpful for the development of Soufrière Fontainebleau.
I like the phrase that you used, main artery. And we're going to just share a clip from the United Nations. The United Nations has deemed tourism as an essential pillar of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the commitment to our Sustainable Development Goals, especially goals number 8, 12, and 14. And I'll tell you what that is in a little while. It serves as a first entry point to the world of work, especially for women, youth, migrant workers, and rural populations in developing and less developed countries. Women represent a majority of the tourism sector workforce, while half of that workforce is under the age of 25 years old. Moreover, in many parts of the world, the protection of biodiversity and conservation rely heavily on the tourism sector and the revenue it generates. I mean, we're talking about women. This is a perennial problem. We're talking about youth employment. We have one of the highest rates of unemployment in young people. Dominic, how do you feel hearing this? And give us some insight into how we can build on that. Now, before you answer, I said I'm going to tell you a little bit about what SDG 8, 12, and 14 are. So SDG 8 promotes sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. So we're hearing some buzzwords here: sustained, sustainable, inclusive economic growth. And SDG 12, economic growth and development require the production of goods and services that improve the quality of life. Economic growth again is featuring here. Right. And SDG 14 aims to protect and ensure the sustainable use of oceans. This includes reducing marine pollution and ocean acidification, end overfishing, and conserve marine and coastal ecosystems. And we've been hearing about the blue economy. Yeah. So so
there must be environmental sustainability. There must be economic sustainability. And there also must be socio-cultural sustainability for tourism to work holistically. So all three of those things, we must do them well. We must have a level of authenticity to ensure that our culture is front and center of this whole tourism development and destination management conversation. We must ensure that we monetize all of the development work that we need to do. If we're going to make investments in the tourism industry, then those investments must yield economic results so that we can have the money to continue pumping and expanding into the authenticity and all of the work that we need to do to ensure that our environment, for example, is pristine and kept in a very beautiful condition so that tourists will want to travel to our precious island. We must ensure that there is economic sustainability as well. So all of those things, they piggyback on each other, and they're so interlinked would be the word, and we have to make sure that we do all of them well.
Now, Dominic, you said a word that I really, really like.
Which one is that?
Money.
Money answereth all things.
Show me the money.
Yeah.
But before we delve into the really nitty gritty and the meat of everything, let's just take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the money investments.
Sure.
This levy will not be imposed on any food items. This means, Mr. Speaker, that the cost of food should not change because of the levy.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre claims that no other CARICOM countries have received funds from Saudi Arabia and that the $75 million United States loan that he has taken for St. Jude was because of his government's hard work. Here is the truth. Antigua has received $80 million US, Guyana has received $150 million US. Grenada has received $100 million US. Belize has received $77 million US. Bahamas has received $12 million US and St. Vincent received $10 million. We can't trust Pierre.
Back to this amazing and wonderful talk on tourism and World Tourism Day. Now, Dominic, before we went on break, we talked about money and showing us the money and the investment. I'm going to start off with you, and then I'm going to go off to Sean, because he talked about Park City, and he talked about the sky rides, and he talked about he introduced us to community tourism at its best. So let's start off with you. You'll tell us about the investments, and we'll move across to Sean.
Well, in my view, is that we need to get the economics right for the rest of tourism development to work. Tourism affects government taxes. Every visitor that comes through the airport, my estimation suggests that they pay about $400 US in taxes, meaning that they pay $100 in departure tax. There's a tourism head tax that they pay in the top band of $42. That's $142. Then they pay VAT on their consumption and a whole range of other things. So if the tourists are not coming through the hotel, it affects government revenue, it affects jobs, it affects small businesses that rely on those same tourists, whether it is craft, whether it is Sean and the taxi sector, farmers, it affects the manufacturing sector. There's a massive contribution and a massive reliance on the tourism sector. I think that we've done very badly in terms of expanding the sector quickly. In the last 10 years, we've only seen about between the Royalton and Harbor Club, that's 2 hotels we've built in 10 years. And so while we're doing all this politics and making all of this noise and people talking about how many hotels we've built, we've really done badly. And if you look at that, that's a net gain of 250 something rooms, because you would remember that Royalton replaced a hotel that was there. So Royalton, you had the Club St. Lucia Hotel, or the Smugglers, that became Smugglers. And then it was 405 rooms they had, that expanded to 456 rooms. I think 556 rooms rather, that Royalton is now. So that's a net gain of about 145, 150 rooms. And then Harbor Club, brand new build, but just 124 rooms. You put those two together, you have roughly about 275 rooms in 10 years. So if we went by that, it means that in our traditional hotel stock, we've only expanded by 27 rooms per year. That's bad. That's a failure on us as a country. Now, we have got to find ways, and the conversation should be about how do we make this faster? Because if this rate of development continues, it means that the high unemployment rate that we reference, we will have a worse chance at solving that problem. If this persists, it would mean that the government revenues that we're talking about, we will have a terrible chance at balancing the fiscal deficits that exist now. And maybe we wouldn't have needed the 2.5% tax, because we would have done our work to grow the economy, create more jobs, create more taxpayers, create more spending power, create more opportunity for other small businesses to invest in our communities. Maybe local shops will do better. There's just a whole range and a whole quantum of opportunity that we have missed, that we need to do a lot better. We have to get the business of tourism right before we start talking about other things. We have to become better business people. That's the place I believe we need to start. How are we performing as tourism businesses? Are we creating the best enabling environment for our hotels and our small tourism businesses to thrive? The answer is no. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. When you lose 13 flights a week, that's bad. And I'll get into airlifting in just a moment. Now, on the Airbnb side, which is your sector.
Okay, so this is where I was coming.
We have seen
those are the
significant
things-
growth.
Right,
That sector
right.
has grown a lot faster than the hotel sector.
So therefore, do we need the hotel sector to grow even faster if the Airbnb sector is picking up the slack? And what can we
The,
do?
the Airbnb sector, unfortunately, is not picking up the slack because if it were, the unemployment rate would have been reduced significantly.
But
so,
we
so
do
the
have-
Airbnb sector is generating significant local ownership, significant local participation, and I love that. And so we've seen the last report I saw suggested there are about 2,700 Airbnb rooms in the country, and mostly operated by St. Lucia nationals. And that is fundamental. That has been the big game changer in the industry, where we see technology, and we've got to talk about technology and how it will create new gateways for the tourism sector to expand, and how it will create new opportunities for local participation.
But is the Airbnb sector being utilized or focused, given the focus that it deserves? Because I dare say that a lot of these rooms that you quoted, 2,700, a lot of them are often not occupied.
Yes. And,
So-
that, and
so-
so we
so-
come back
so-
to destination management.
Right, so
if,
therefore-
for example, your air seats are going to be reduced by 40% in the summer, as it is now, then the Airbnb sector will not be able to compete with organized hotels, especially the international brands that have, infrastructure behind them to do their reservations right, do their marketing, spend multi-million-dollar budgets, and is more connected to the traditional distribution system of travel agents, tour operators, and airlines.
But are
And
you
so
saying,
the
hold on,
Airbnb
hold on,
sector
hold
will
on.
struggle under those circumstances?
Are you saying, therefore, that we as a government, as a people, as a country have not done enough niche marketing for these to accommodate these Airbnbs? Because you rightly said we don't have, and I'm speaking from my experience, we don't have the deep pockets that a Sandals or one of those other chains would have, and therefore we need to be amalgamated. We need a lot more investment or invested in us, from our
which
government.
is what Village Tourism Incorporated was all about. And so one of the things that I am disappointed about is that this government, I don't think they understand what we were trying to do with that sector, and with making sure that you have infrastructure and you have the machinery to help small tourism businesses. You going with one bedroom, trying to compete with the world in this vast expanse of an ecosystem of rooms, you are going to be crowded out. Airbnb and VRBO and Expedia alone cannot do it for you. So you need assistance as well, and you need to drive some of your own direct bookings. You need greater online presence. You need to ensure that you are taking care of some of your own stuff.
I hear you,
and
Dominic.
that's what Village Tourism Incorporated was set up to do.
So tell us a little bit about what village tourism was supposed to have been, because it seems to me that even those persons who are in that sector aren't aware of what was there for us. So maybe the previous administration did not market it enough. They didn't tell us. They didn't bring us in, because I have a website. But do I necessarily know how to optimize the clicks, for instance? Do I know how to optimize persons looking for a stay in St. Lucia? They don't necessarily want to, because, for instance, my clientele don't come from the traditional. When I think of the traditional markets, I think of America, the United States,
America,
and England. That's not my market. My market is Canada. So how can we use that and to get more Canadians coming in? Because Canadians don't like to stay, in my experience, they don't like to stay at the all-inclusives. They like to backpack it. They like to find out, find out the country, explore the country on their own. They like to walk among the people. They want to eat in the little holes in the wall. They like to go to the cabarets, They like to eat what we eat. I had a client, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, called me from Canada, I think Alberta, and said to me, Laura, that breakfast you had for us that last day we were here with the saltfish and whatnot, I want to know how to do it. Explain to me. And I was so excited. I did a whole video on how to prepare a saltfish, you know? Yeah, and he did it, and he called back and said, I did it. It wasn't as good as yours, but I tried it anyway. And they're coming back. And so a lot of my clients are repeat clients, you know, and a lot of them, you know, come from that market. So I haven't forgotten you.
No.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So, and you're going to find that the skill sets and the passion is going to vary from Airbnb operator to operator. And so what is needed is a central management system to ensure that there is sufficient presence by everyone online. Everyone is managing their reservation systems well. You have a very standardized product that you're offering in terms of the decor, in terms of the beddings, and in terms of the cutlery. And you speak about the cabaret. You can go into a cabaret, the toilets are clean, the food is very good. You know, the bartender who's there is also a decent chef or cook that's taking our local dishes and tweak them a little bit so that guests that are coming from different parts can relate to this menu that is us, that we are creating. And so that's what it was all about. It was about creating opportunities for St. Lucians to be more successful within the tourism industry. The only thing that has happened since this administration has come in is they have changed the name from village tourism and they've called it community tourism. Ask them for a report in terms of what they have accomplished in 2 years. They couldn't tell you. Village tourism was about making sure that no community, no village was left behind. And that's why you see we went to Soufrière, where Herod can talk about all the things that he has done. If you go to Ancillary, where I was the MP not so long ago, we left a hotel project that's 99% completed. All the government has to do is complete it and lease it to someone so that you create an opportunity for small businesses. We have, for example, the fish fry building. We completed it. All they had to do was to wire the building. How long does it take to wire the vendor's shed that we know for the ancillary fish fry? We built a restaurant on the beach in the location of the community center so that the community now was reoriented. Instead of looking at the beach as the back of the community, the beach now and the waterfront was now, it becomes the front and the focal point
and it
of the
should
community.
be. That's what people come for, right? They come for the beach. They come to have that view, and they pay a lot of money for that view. Yeah,
that's correct. So all of this work, we weren't just talking. In Grosley, if Spider was here, he can tell you about a lot of the tangible things that he can point to where village tourism has accomplished. Now what we've seen is a lot of talk. I mean, if you go to Soufrière and Herod, and what we have done in Soufrière within that short space of time, and we had COVID. I see the market, the Box Park project is now going up. That's a project that we conceived, we designed. It came from the OECS Tourism Competitive Project. And, you know, we did phase one of the market to make sure that, look, this piece of real estate, which is on the waterfront, you've got at least 800,000 cruise passengers coming, and most of them are getting off in the Castries waterfront. The cruise lines have said to us whenever we met with them, St. Lucia has a very disembarkation rate. Some of the cruise lines reported as much as 95%. People were coming off the ship. But when they got off the ship and they walk around our port,
what is there to do?
They spent less than a third of their time on port and they went back to the ship. And that is because we have not done a good job in making sure that, you know, we leverage this great opportunity. The cruise lines are bringing all of these people. We have been bad business people in making sure that we create the right products and cause them to spend money and cause them to want to stay on our port a bit longer, which is why we decided that, look, we need to change the ambience a lot, which is why we did a lot of work on sidewalks in Castries. We looked at the Derek Walker Square and we removed the fencing so that the Derek Walker Square can be more appealing and aesthetically inviting to tourists that are coming. And now I'm very happy to see that this administration continued the work that we had started in the redesign of the whole bit of the market, the Castries market, between Massey stores and the market. That's going to look beautiful because I'm very familiar with the designs. And so I commend this government for continuing with the project because we put a lot of effort into getting the project to this stage where it's now being constructed. That is going to create opportunities for several small businesses, persons, to lease those shops, to create better product. Now, one of the things that we've got to be careful of is that as we move into the new market facility, the new Jeremy Street Plaza, not Jeremy Street, what's that street called? Between Massey stores and the market. Anyway, you know where I'm talking about. And so instead of us just treating this as just a piece of infrastructure, we've got to be mindful as to what products do we put in there, because a failure perennially of our destination has been that we haven't been very creative in terms of our offerings. All of the vendors basically sell the same thing.
Well, this is what I was just let's just stop here, because this is what I was about to ask you. What is the length of time that the tourists spend when they get off port, when they disembark, and what is the economic value of them coming off if everything that they see is the same, for one, and for two, when you flip it, made in China, you hardly get our local or organic craft, or even our clothing. We have a lot of designers out there who design beautiful things with the madras and with crocus and all of those things, but we don't get them in the market. Is it that it's too costly? What is the economic value to the tourists? I mean, when they come in, they want to see something different. They want to eat something local. And when I say eat something local, it reminds me of somebody who had said something to me. When I go into a place, and Sean will come to you for that, I want to smell the place before I see the place. And the community that they spoke about in high, glowing terms was Babonneau. By the time they get into Babonneau, they smell Babonneau before they see Babonneau, because in some of the areas, the richness of the foods and the local herbs that they use, it really stuck with them. And that is somebody coming from Castries, going into Babonneau, and that is local tourism.
Local tourism, yes.
So what is the value of that to the tourist and to the native? Now, Dominic, you've dominated. So let's go to Sean and get an insight from him.
So in the earlier days, we had the American Peace Corps Association. They did a pilot project in Babonneau where Americans were coming to volunteer their services into St. Lucia. So they used Babonneau as the area they wanted to start off with. So those people came and they stayed in the community for 3 months, where they got little training insights and stayed with local persons. And for 2 years, they would be staying in the community, work in schools, in the health centers and different things. And the presence of those Americans, when they came there, they were sort of surprised. The food that they ate were prepared by us, the local persons in Babonneau. And they went through the communities, and the feedback from that program said a lot for Babonneau. And I think that's where Babonneau realized that there was a golden opportunity for us to get into the tourism market, to be able to really make a dent on the market. And so places like Pork City arose from these kind of things. You have different site attractions, because when these Americans went through, they wanted to go to Debara, they wanted to go Turtle Watch, they wanted to do the things that we did in Babonneau. And so it was exciting for them. So when the reports came back and they got the feedback and everything else, a lot of persons even from the agricultural sector moved into taxi, moved into small craft that they made to try and get some part of the tourism dollar coming into Babonneau. So that's some of what it was to us. Now, Babonneau was one of the bigger banana belt areas. A lot of our farmers diversified into more foods that they could grow to sell to the hotels. Because we realized, and at the time, Ezekiel was Minister of Agriculture, so he really pushed and ensured that part of the tourism dollar would have come to Babono, especially in terms of agriculture. And it worked well. You see the farmers who were into bananas tell you, now they realize what agriculture is all about, the monies that they make. But one of the problems that they were facing was that they didn't have good road networks. So Ezekiel, through the government, spent a lot of money trying to build up the road network for those farmers to ensure that their goods were coming out of the farms undamaged and all of that. And this government came into office and they stopped most of the road projects that had already started. So now here we have our farmers, some of them a little rain and they can't go to their farms. So you know that the amount of monies that those guys have been losing. Look at Marquis Estate, for instance. They were trying to do a hotel in Marquis Estate, and you remember during the tenure of the UWP, they pushed for that type of hotel in Marquis Estate where the farmers would be part of the investment and all that. And that just, for some reason, just disappeared.
Now, what I hear you say is we need roads to eat. But in the last elections, we were told we don't eat roads. So, you know, it was downplayed the effects of a proper road network and all of that. But when I hear you, I hear you saying we eat roads because the roads lead to, but that's what you're saying. It leads to the farms. The farms lead to food, and we need food sustainability in this country to feed what we're talking about, tourism, not just ourselves, but the tourists that come in. If we cannot feed them the things that are indigenous to us, and they're coming for, like we said earlier, they're coming to experience a new culture, new foods, to immerse themselves in a new experience. If what they're getting is the same mac and cheese and the lasagna and burgers and not our local food because we can't get to our farms, then what are we talking about?
Exactly. If I may add on to local tourism, village tourism, Laura, and village tourism under our government was all about the St. Lucian people. It was about bringing tourism to every nook and cranny corner of St. Lucia, every district, because we understood the role of the bigger hotels in St. Lucia in tourism, and we also understood how village tourism would have positively impacted every St. Lucian in every village. And Soufrière, like Dominic said, was a very good example of what we started in the whole creation of village tourism. And village tourism, if I may add, Laura, started in Soufrière with the Hummingbird Beach project, which was conceptualized by United Workers' Party in 2011. And the Labour Party came into office and did nothing to that project until we came back into office in 2016. And Hummingbird Beach project was for tourism. We had an issue with the two main hotels in Soufrière, Sugar Beach and Anchasni, with overcrowding from the cruise ships coming to those beaches almost on a daily basis. What we did, we said that Hummingbird Beach is there, it is underutilized, you have no facilities, nothing to attract and keep visitors there. So we undertook that project to put in the facilities, the concession boats, the washrooms, the showers, redo the beach and the canopy cabanas and so on, so that the cruise liners, the passengers through the water taxis, the cruise ships, the power boats, speed boats, and taxi drivers would take those people there for swimming and snorkeling. But also, Soufrière has a lot of private villas and quite a few Airbnbs. This would have been another beach for those individuals to go to spend the tourist dollar at Hummingbird Beach, and they could walk into the town as well. So we understood that very, very clearly, and hence the creation of Hummingbird Beach back in Soufrière. But we also understood that for village tourism to succeed, government must play a critical role in putting the infrastructure in place. And when I say infrastructure, the beach facility is part of the infrastructure. What we did with the Old Trafford complex, with the market, the bus terminal, the second and third phase, which we're going to have additional concession booths, restaurants, and so on, and bars, all of those things would have been infrastructure to attract the tourists, both from the resorts as well as the Airbnbs and the villas into the town. What we started on the waterfront in Soufrière, the Shoreline Cafe, this was going to be part of that infrastructure. But most critical was the road network. And what we did at new development, with the new development roads, that was very critical because there are quite a few Airbnb accommodations at new development. It would have given the people of this area that opportunity, that added leverage of increasing the value of the homes, so that persons would be able to refinance or even mortgage the homes with that increased value to add little apartments and so on, and extend on the homes to go into Airbnbs. What we did with the road at Esperance, Diamond, all of that was part of the village tourism infrastructure, because this was a road which for over 50 years had not been touched. It was impossible for any vehicle to cross through from Soufrière into Esperance for Saint-Jacques through that road. So by building this road, reconstructing this road, it has opened up that area with persons having lands there to build, to construct, to put their accommodations up there, to put small restaurants, small bars, create new sites right now, new nature trails. Because once you have a good road network, Laura, nowhere is too far for a tourist to stay, for a tourist to go in St. Lucia. We understood that.
I like the fact that you said nowhere is too far.
And if we can just build a bit, I think the overarching framework of making sure that St. Lucians are more involved. So Herod mentioned a lot about the infrastructure. But one of the things that I loved about our policy thrust, and this administration, I'm told, is bringing a new bill to Parliament to reflect some of our policy suggestions that we left behind in the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Finance. And the policy thrust is that you cannot discriminate with concessions. So for a long time, bigger players within the tourism industry had concessions. So only the bigger boys. The law says that you needed 6 bedrooms to have concessions. Now, I am very happy that our policy will be made law very soon, because legislation, it takes a while to churn, and which is why I'm very disappointed as to how the current administration would have rushed this 2.5% tax levy. But that's for another show.
Yes,
and so I don't want us to get sidetracked, but concessions, important for small businesses. So you're building a restaurant, you're doing an Airbnb, you want to do a cottage, a villa. We set the policy framework that you too should qualify for concessions regardless of the size of your investment. Number 2, financing. Banks are very discriminating.
Before you go into financing, we need to take a quick break.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll delve into this, because it's just going to open up a whole other area that we need to give ventilation to, without any interruptions.
Sure.
So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about investment for the investment and financing.
Philip J. Pierre says that all state funds should go into the consolidated fund. Here are some examples of Philip J. Pierre's hypocrisy. As we speak, work on the rehabilitation of the Millennium Highway is ongoing. This project is financed by the Caribbean Development Bank. CDB pays the contractor for the Millennium Highway directly. The funds do not go into the consolidated fund. Philip J. Pierre also happens to be the current chairman of CDB. Why aren't the funds going into the consolidated fund if the practice is so unusual as he makes it out to be? Funds from St. Lucia's Citizenship by Investment program also do not go into the consolidated fund. In 2022, the government of St. Lucia collected a whopping $51 million from the Citizenship by Investment program. Not 1 cent was put into the consolidated fund. What have they done with all this money? Why isn't it going into the consolidated fund? The same contractor that Philip J. Pierre is accusing of facilitating corruption was just awarded a major contract for the new air traffic control tower at Huanora International Airport, and payments will go directly to their account in Panama. In other words, this means that money is not coming into the consolidated fund. Why would a prime minister deliberately spread propaganda and misinformation regarding a practice he follows himself? Why the hypocrisy? What is Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre trying to distract you from? We can't trust Pierre.
Back. I hope you've been enjoying our podcast. There's so much to talk about and so little time, but we're going to make the best out of what we have. Now, before we went on break, we delved a little bit in financing opportunities. Dominic?
Well, I think banks have been discriminative. It's been very difficult for medium and small businesses, whether in tourism, agriculture, manufacturing, or retail, to get financing from our banks. And so what we did, and I was very proud of our administration, is there was $10 million available to us from the CARICOM Development Fund. And what we used this grant funding to do was to create a credit facility for small tourism businesses. And so we lodged the money at the St. Lucia Development Bank. I was witness to our former Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Honorable Alan Shastney, signing with the CEO of the CARICOM Development Fund, who's in fact a St. Lucian, Mr. Roddy Suma. And we get the ball rolling for there to have some level of financing. So if you wanted to open up a restaurant, if you wanted to open up, start, do an apartment, you had some level of financing, which is very important. Again, we began this conversation by saying you can have all the best dreams in the world, but if someone don't finance your dreams, if you're not going to get the requisite financing, then that's just a pipe dream. And what I think that's not coming through about the development conversations of the day, when we talk about village tourism or community tourism or whatever the Labour Party wants to call it, we're not talking about the business. We're not talking about the reality. The reality is a lot of people can't get started, and you have to get them started. You've got to go ahead.
You said they have to get started.
Yes.
They need to get started.
Yes.
How do they get started? I got started. How I got started is not the issue here. But here's my thing. Location. How important is location, and let's say in the Airbnb sector, in the community tourism? Because let's face it, I have a place, it's beautiful. When people come in there, they say, oh, my slogan is across the street from ordinary. That's my slogan.
Oh.
Because when you're on that street, when
you can't stop this lady.
This is my slogan. It's
How do you compete against a slogan like that?
Across the street from ordinary. So when you're on the street, it's an ordinary street. There's a derelict building on not too far. There is a little hole in the wall. Persons look askance, but when they ask me where can I get something to eat that's local and what I address them there, I point them in that direction. They come back and say, "Oh my gosh, this was fantastic!" And we have people coming all the way from your district, coming from Soufrière, especially when the lobster season is open, to enjoy, because we're a fishing community, enjoy the lobsters and the lobby and the sea urchin and all of that. They love it, and when they get inside, they're like, "Whoa! I never saw this coming." I booked the place, but I didn't have high hopes. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you see the street, like you see, when I put it on my website, okay, lovely. And then they come and they say, "This is the place? Are we sure?" And then they come inside and they're like, "Yes, I love it. Great." But maybe we can be getting more. My point is maybe we could be getting more traction if our neighbors, the persons who are around us, upkept their own buildings. Right. How important is that to the industry, and how can we face that? Because I have my family has increased our numbers, our rooms, and I am looking to push my hand in my pocket and pay one of my neighbors to repair and to maybe just paint up the building, because it's a distraction. I mean, I am thinking if I came into this place and I saw that, I'm like, would I want to stay there? Is that because everything around, we're looking at, you buy with your eyes before anything else. So when you see the place, you're like, okay, I'm walking down the street and this is a place I want to stay, even from the outside. You see the outside before you see the inside.
Which is why, while I was MP for Ancillary, we did a lot of facade improvements to the main street.
That's right.
And that's very critical to create the ambience so that people can feel safe, people can feel wonderful. People experience things to a large degree with their eyes.
Right.
You go to get a meal and the presentation is not good, it can affect the way that you interpret that meal. So it's critical that we train our people in the cabaways. We got to present our drinks, we got to present our food in a way that's aesthetically pleasing. There's nothing like when you go to a restaurant and then, you know, the customers go, I don't even want to destroy this because this looks so pretty.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
the level we need to get
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
And if I may add, Laura, this was all part of the vision which we had as a government for village tourism. Village tourism incorporated the franchise, which was to put in place the infrastructure, but as Dominic said, to help with the improvement, the repairs, the rehabilitation of certain buildings, derelict buildings, the facade of certain buildings in the villages, in the towns, in the communities, to kind of complement whatever was offered there as part of village tourism. Village tourism franchise was also going to enable the franchises, okay, to get one accounting system in place, help them with the accounting, help them with the marketing, the interior and exterior decor. It was also going to be a facility to train in whether it was bartending, in food preparation, menu preparation and presentation, and all of those things was going to be part of the village tourism franchise which we put in place. I also remember we had training for persons, I think, for the cruise ships.
We did.
And the goal,
Hundreds of young people.
Hundreds of young people from all over the country, was for those young persons to have gained the experience, gain the certification, so that they could go on those ships, go to some of those resorts, and be able to become professionals and come back into the towns, into the villages, and work in those establishments, as well as get an opportunity for them, they themselves, to start their own small businesses, the small Airbnbs, the small restaurants, bars, and be part of that Village Tourism Inc. franchise which we're creating in the country.
Great. So, and I mean, I think that is so important to us, because it could really destroy, you know, a product that you're trying to build. Derelict buildings, you know, they're a breeding ground for a lot of vermin and other things that really, if you didn't want it for yourself in your home, I look at village tourism or community tourism, however it's dubbed, as inviting people to your home.
Yeah.
That's right.
And when
That's
people,
what it is,
and when people come to your home, you give them the best. You lead with your best foot forward. You know somebody's coming. Even your own family is coming from the diaspora. You make sure that home is sparkling clean. You know, the windows are done. You know, the kids are put out of their bedrooms.
That's correct.
You know, and I look at it as that on a wider scale.
That's
so we really need to pay attention to
and that is one of the competitive edge that we have got. Just what you have said, that spirit of hospitality, that spirit of hosting, that spirit of giving our guests the very best of ourselves is so crucial.
It's so important. Now, seasonality.
Yeah.
I want to talk about seasonality. I want to talk about airlift. I know we touched on it a little earlier, but I want to talk about how can we bring in people throughout the year. We have summer, thankfully, 12 months. You know, we're so when people talk about summer, it doesn't really apply to us, it applies to them. But we have great weather basically 12 months out of the year. Right. How do we bring people in April? How do we bring people in, especially on the community level? How do we bring them in May? You know, we have a saying that once the buzz hits, we're going to make the numbers, you know, because, and you have to eat, you have to keep the lights on, you have to keep the water flowing, you have to pay whatever staff you have. Otherwise, seasonal and unemployment is going to always be a bugbear for us. Right. How do we combat that? How do we bring people in January to December?
This is a pet peeve of mine. So during COVID, while everyone looked at the situation around the world and they said crisis, the cabinet under the leadership of Alan Chastain looked at hundreds of planes parked on the tarmacs of airports all over the world. And we said, out of this crisis can come our greatest opportunity. And what we did, Laura, was we said, let's put a set of protocols. Let's be one of the first in the world to champion and perfect the meaning of coexisting with COVID. We worked with our Ministry of Health to ensure that whatever protocols we were putting in place to reopen our tourism industry, we're not going to endanger the people of St. Lucia. We met with all of the airlines who were impressed with our strategy to reopen. Out of that, we got American Airlines from Dallas for the first time in the development of our country. We got American Airlines out of Chicago for the first time. We got JFK weekly out of New York, American Airlines. We got a second Miami flight. That was a daily flight 7 times a week. We also got JetBlue 3 times a week out of New Jersey for the first time in history of tourism management of this country. Now that accounts for about 13 flights a week. We left, in come the St. Lucia Labour Party administration. All of these flights are gone. Now the easiest thing for them to have done was just to make sure that they maintain these flights. The hardest thing is to convince an airline to come to your destination and to invest in a new route. And so you have got an obligation to make sure that you keep these flights. Mm-hmm. Why? Why is Dallas important? Dallas is a year-round market. Because in Dallas, not only do they have a winter, but they have heat waves in the summer months. Mm-hmm. Missed opportunity for St. Lucia. So you talk about ending seasonality, creating more airlift, more opportunity, and making it easier for Texans to get to St. Lucia from the hot desert is one strategy. Chicago was important. It created competition on the route. United, the only carrier that comes from Chicago. By putting American, you're going to have better airfares. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's affecting us with seasonality and affecting Airbnbs, affecting farmers, affecting taxi drivers, are the high airfares to come to St. Lucia. You can get a flight from Miami sometimes $750 US, $1,750. I've seen flights as high as that. That's crazy, right? And then people are going to Barbados, which is pretty much the same distance, for 3 times as less. Where do you think they're going to go? So when we don't get these very basics right, then we can talk all the talk we want. People must get here. Tourism is very simple. You need air seats and you need hotel rooms and you need Airbnbs. Mm-hmm. The Airbnbs will not be filled if you don't have flights. Yeah. So it's not rocket science. The minister and the Ministry of Tourism and the Tourism Authority, they have failed all of the people in St. Lucia. Now, if we talk about cruise tourism, we have a taxi operator here. He will tell you more about that. Now, but we're dealing with seasonality. We are the world's leading tourism destination. We have received that award 14 times consecutively. St. Lucia is the leading honeymoon destination in the world. Okay? When do people get married? You are a bride. Tell me. But do you want? When do people get married in our marketplace? People don't get married in the wintertime.
Yeah.
People want nice pictures in the summer.
Yes.
So from spring all the way to summer. So we're talking April to August, big wedding season. Most weddings, I want to go somewhere nice and hot and beautiful. I want to go to a romantic place like St. Lucia for my honeymoon. We've got the resorts. We've got the service. We've got the destination. What we don't have in the summer, we don't have the flights. So the award is of no use. The reputation that we have as a romance destination is of no value to us because we haven't got the planes. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
if you don't have air seats for people to get here, go figure. So what's happening in St. Lucia right now, and the government is not talking about it because they know that they have squandered a really good opportunity that we have left for them. And that is the bigger, more organized chains can get those limited air seats faster than your Airbnb. They are booking a year in advance. They are marketing prowess is that much more superior to the smaller hotels. That's why we see a lot of boutique hotels, 100 rooms and less. They have exchanged hands several times. Look around St. Lucia. Tell me why hotels change names, new owners, acquisitions, and we're just exchanging and passing on a perennial problem to somebody else.
Right.
I feel, well, I'm going to sell this and I'm going to pass it on to someone
Dominic,
else.
Would it make sense?
Look at the amount of hotels in the last 20 years that have been in receivership, that have failed with the bank. Look at how many are closed and are now abandoned and derelict. Yeah? It's because of this problem. Now, when we talk about we have a great jazz festival and a great carnival, that's 2 weeks out of a 52-week destination strategy. What are you going to do for the rest of the week?
But that is why I quite appreciated.
Yeah.
I quite appreciated the summer festival, the whole summer. So throughout the entire summer, you had something. So I might not be a jazz person, but I came for the R&B. I may not be an R&B person, but I came for the food and rum. I came for this. So this is why this strategy to me made absolute sense, and I looked forward to it being rolled out. To be less centralized and to be rolled out within the outer districts, like the communities. So for instance, you could have a food and rum in October, Creole style. So you have it in a library kind of a setting. You have it, and really immerse, and not just one street, but you go on the various streets and you can sound a real festival, right? A real festival type thing where you're walking and you're tasting and it's not just concentrate. And I recognize before my head is bitten off, I recognize that it takes a vast amount of infrastructure and investment but it can be done. It can be done if you include and you incorporate the community, the people who stand to benefit. You would not have people saying, "Oh, I don't benefit from that. I'm not asked my opinion. I'm not involved. So what's in it for me?"
Right.
You force them to have skin in the game, so to speak, and you will see how you'll be amazed at how it would.
This is really, and we have to talk about seasonality in the cruise industry, and he's going to talk about. But this is really not just about the flights and the hotels. I want you to know that right now as we speak, over 50% of hotel employees, that's over 7,500 hotel employees, are on rotation right now, are getting less hours. Their bills have not been adjusted, but their pays have been adjusted significantly. And so when we talk about, local benefits and local ownership, we've got to get the fundamental and the basic business principles of the industry right before we even start doing anything else, because we haven't done our homework. We've got to make sure that we get these principles right. We've got to make sure that there's consistent pay and work for hotel employees who've got 52 weeks of bills to pay. Taxi drivers, if they take loans, the bank is not going to say it's low season. Well, I'm going to give you a different rate of interest.
I'm going to prorate your payment. So in the peak season, you pay $2,000, but in the low season, you pay $500.
That's not going to happen.
For your income.
If you take a loan for your Airbnb,
yes,
okay, and to do some renovations to upgrade the place, to bring it out, the bank is not going to say, well, let me give her a break.
Yeah. Or Lucelec is not going to say, oh, you know what?
Low season.
Low season, I'm going to charge you residential rates as opposed to commission. How has that worked for you? Coming from the taxi point of view, because I know taxi drivers are very vocal when it comes to their monies.
During the time of COVID, we were faced with issues where we did not have cruise tourism. And of course, most taxi drivers depend a lot on cruise tourism, because that's when you get to do the little fast fares and pick up some monies and to help pay your bills. And these are monies that come in instantly. So during COVID time, we were hit hard. Not only we didn't have the cruise tourism, we did not the amount of people that came to the hotel. There were specific persons who could have done the tours and the transfers and the different things. So the taxi drivers, we've for some reason, we were on the back end of things. We stood quiet because we understood what was going on. But as the country opened up, we saw more development and things were happening. So a new government came into office. And some of us saw it as an opportunity where things would have expanded and things would have gotten greater. But we have realized that the numbers have gotten smaller. So we have less people coming in, even in the hotels. We have the cruise ships, less cruise ships coming in. In an off season, when a taxi driver would say, hey, I made a certain amount of money during the season, so I'll pay my little bills as I can, and the little that I will make in the off season, I'll be able to sustain myself. We're faced with off season having no cruise ships. So taxi drivers are just, their vehicles are packed. They have nothing to do, nowhere to go.
Support job for communities like Labrie that say on the way to Herod, on the way to Sufra, maybe they'll stop off at the Rudy John Park and partake or in our arts and crafts center there and buy a little something. We're getting nothing.
So the reason why we stayed quiet was because some of us had just benefited from the duty-free concessions that came into play. So persons changed their vehicles, upgraded their vehicles. To no fault of us, right now we can't earn $1 because in the off season there's no cruise ship coming in. The little tourists that come, they either take a rental or they tell you I'm just walking to the restaurant which is just over there. So all these vehicles, most of them are just packed, waiting for the season to start off, hoping that we have a good season. And you have your mortgage, you have your children going to school.
How are the banks with you guys on that, with regard to that? Because I would assume that you've just bought a new vehicle.
We've been having a difficulty getting finances for vehicles. We've been having a difficulty. The only one thing that saved us was that we were getting the duty-free concession. So the vehicle you'd have bought from Beachcomber, let's just say 162,000, you'd buy it for 130. So the bank would have quicker give you a loan because they know the value of that vehicle is still higher than what they gave you for. But some of us, we can't pay our loans, and the bank's looking for some of those vehicles, and people have to be hiding and hoping when the season opens up that they can run and put something down and re-trigger the whole system. I mean, some of us taxi drivers, we playing hide and seek with the banks, you know.
Wow.
That's the harsh reality of it.
Wow.
And so in the off season, it's even worse for us because your children still have to go to school. This September come, you have to get books, you have to get all kind of things for children to go to school. How do you do that on an off season where you have no money coming in?
That is indeed that. But
if I may add, Laura, onto seasonality. Seasonality is damaging to the lives and livelihoods of persons in the tourism sector, especially Sufre, as someone who's in the industry, a former parliamentary rep who interacts with the key stakeholders in my constituency on a daily basis. I could tell you, this off season has been the worst in the history of tourism in St. Lucia and in Sufre. And as Dominic articulated earlier on, it is because of the mismanagement of the industry by the Ministry of Tourism and the St. Lucia Tourism Authority. When you've lost 12 flights a week, that is devastating. And like he said, you have many persons in Sufre who are on rotation at all the resorts. You have resorts that are closed in Sufre. You have villas that are shut down. Absolutely, restaurants shut down. And all those persons are home without pay. It means that whatever salary they were getting at the end of the fortnight is much lower. Service charge is sometimes non-existent because you do not have guests to fill those properties so that they can get a good service charge to add to their fortnightly salaries. And it has a trickle-down effect, Laura. Taxi drivers, like Sean said, frustrated, no money is coming in, no tours, no transfers, nothing, and the bills have to be paid. Water taxi operators, no tourists. Speedboat operators, no tourists. The young guys who go to the yachts, the yacht guides, the yachts are not coming in.
Now, stop there.
Operators.
Hold on. You talked about the boats. The speedboats, the operators. The water taxis. No. How can we parlay this in and piggyback on the blue economy such that where we invite a different caliber of people to come in, those persons, the marine conservationists, and they come in during the low season, right, and make use of that because what their business is, say, hydrography or finding out about the ocean. And I dare say, I'm working on a project right now with my company, Invictus Inc., where we're developing what's called the Magellan, where it's an unmanned surface vehicle, which is going to help us to determine the effects of climate change on our waters, and will tell us about the salinity, and we're looking forward to inviting persons to come in, scientists and the like, to come in and do the research. How can we tie that in to tourism and to bring in another
Again, it's a very good
niche?
suggestion, Laura. Again, it's the Ministry of Tourism, it's the Tourism Authority that have to put in the measures in place, the policies in place to look out for this niche market so that they can augment the business of those water taxi operators and speedboat operators during the low season.
How feasible is
But
this?
to go back to our point on seasonality, I could tell you that the vendors in Soufrière are feeling it. The taxi drivers, the restaurant owners, the bar owners, fishermen, farmers,
tour
everybody.
operators.
Because
Are
tourism,
we expected to close down and
tourism
only
has-
open 6 months out of the year?
tourism has a trickle-down effect. Everybody, the barber, the hairdresser, everybody feels the impact, and it is really, really bad. And compounding that, Laura, you have this government implementing a 2.5% on the backs of those people who are on rotation, who still have to pay the water bill, the light bill, who still have to pay the cable, who still have to feed the children. Cost of living, cost of food is so high. And yet still these people are on rotation, or they are at home, they're not working, because the government have failed to keep the air flights, the flights to St. Lucia. They've lost 12 flights, and the people of St. Lucia are paying for this callous mistake and this mismanagement of the industry.
I like the way you say that, very forceful, and I feel your passion, and I feel I feel it because I'm in the industry, and I dare say we're not half as dependent on tourism in Labrie as the people of Soufrière. So I can just imagine the number of persons, and with all of the infrastructure that you built during your tenure, that's just sitting there. Yeah. I talked about the blue economy. We're running out of time. We're going to take a little break, but before we do, how do we tie in that niche market of the blue economy into tourism in the off season?
Well, first of all, you need customers, and if they're not there in the off season, then it becomes difficult for you to.
Well, they're there because we know they're going elsewhere. They're going to the Bahamas. They're going, and
So-
in our waters in the Caribbean, less work has been done to find out about what's happening climate change wise in our waters, and we're being affected most by climate change than all of those other places. So the market is there. How do we tap into it and invite and lure these people to us, to our shores, to do the research and to bring in people here?
So we've got to make sure that we become the most amazing marketing machinery in our brand destination. We've got to tell people loudly, louder than the other Caribbean islands, even though that they're bigger and they have bigger budgets, some of them. When you think of Jamaica, Bahamas, Dumrep, they're probably, most likely outspending us in terms of their marketing spend. So we have got to use our limited resources in a very targeted way and in a very creative way. So we've got to have an alignment with the markets where you've got airlift. So when people talk about Dubai, opportunity for tourism in Dubai and opportunity for tourism in Nigeria, this is a pipe dream. Without having one single carrier flying to those destinations. Take care of your bread and butter markets, focus on them, align your marketing where they are. That's number one. Number two, you've got to have flights. Your flights must align, and there must be a consistent supply of air seats for the number of hotel rooms, Airbnbs, villas, even yachts that you've got in the destination. And as well, give people the opportunity to cruise and to stay. Becoming a home port is so important as well, which is why we're very, very annoyed at the change in the plans from this administration, from removing the port from the south. That is a fundamental mistake that they have made. And by establishing the port in the south of the island, what it would have done, it would have opened up a whole new market. So now more Airbnbs, more hotels, more places for people to stay in the south. The demand would be that much stronger. And now you could cruise, you can stay because the home port is here. A home port opens up so many more opportunities. And so when you've got 800,000-900,000 cruise passengers coming into your country, the opportunities for provisioning, a lot of the food is coming from you because the loading up is done in the home port. So there are so many opportunities that by not skillfully managing the destination, which is the responsibility of governments, that's our part, to make sure that you've got a good airport, for example. To make sure, I mean, we're talking about an airport for how many years now? This government came in, stopped the project, played a lot of politics with it. There's no time in that for the world. Meanwhile, the rest of the world are moving along. They're moving very swiftly, and they're leaving us behind.
Okay, so what I hear there is airlift is a linchpin. So
Absolute cornerstone.
we're going to put a pin here, and we're going to take a break. I'm not sure how much time we have left, if we have any time at all, but we'll take a little break here, and then if we have any more time, we'll come back and say our goodbyes or delve more, because there's so much more to talk about, how do we increase the pay? How do we get our people to maybe take on more jobs, to leverage themselves, even in the down season? So we'll be right back.
Philip J. Pierre says that all state funds should go into the consolidated fund. Here are some examples of Philip J. Pierre's hypocrisy. As we speak, work on the rehabilitation of the Millennium Highway is ongoing. This project is financed by the Caribbean Development Bank. CDB pays the contractor for the Millennium Highway directly. The funds do not go into the consolidated fund. Philip J. Pierre also happens to be the current chairman of CDB. Why aren't the funds going into the consolidated fund if the practice is so unusual as he makes it out to be? Funds from St. Lucia's Citizenship by Investment program also do not go into the consolidated fund. In 2022, the government of St. Lucia collected a whopping $51 million US from the Citizenship by Investment program. Not 1 cent was put into the consolidated fund. What have they done with all this money? Why isn't it going into the consolidated fund? The same contractor that Philip J. Pierre is accusing of facilitating corruption was just awarded a major contract for the new air traffic control tower at Huanora International Airport, and payments will go directly to their account in Panama. In other words, this means that money is not coming into the consolidated fund. Why would a prime minister deliberately spread propaganda and misinformation regarding a practice he follows himself? Why the hypocrisy? What is Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre trying to distract you from? We can't trust Pierre.
Don't have much time, so we've just come back to say goodbye to you. It's been wonderful. It's been an eye-opener for me. And I hope it has been an eye-opener for you. In my area, Airbnb, I really would like to see us do a lot more. I would really like to see more rooms, not just rooms, not just rooms. I would like to see us have a product. From my perspective, I have 3. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it off air. 3 different niche markets that I want to tap into, and I'm going to offer 3 different brands of rooms at different locations, that every time you come this year, you stay at one, and when you come next year, you'll want to stay at the other. So we have one that's going to take into consideration the fish lovers. We have anglers who that's all they want to do. They just want to come to fish. They want to come and spend the majority of the days fishing. So we're going to have that. And for those persons who just want to do the rest and relaxation, we have something like that. And for those persons who want to do the culture and they want to immerse themselves, we have something for them as well. So I would like to see more of that in the Airbnb sector. How about you, Dominic? What would you like, your final words to the people?
Laura, I want to thank you very much for organizing and hosting this show on World Tourism Day. Very important discussion, because tourism affects the destiny of our lives in such an impactful way. When we think of, the water supply, the education system, the healthcare system, a lot of the monies actually come from the tourism industry and the wealth that we've been able to generate from tourism. We have come so far, but yet we have that much further to go in order for us to maximize the great opportunities that we have within this industry that creates a wide expanse of opportunity for our people, young, old, medium age. And so what we want to do is to make sure that we continue to have discussions like these, so that we can come up with the best solutions. Our airlift is in a mess. The season is the worst I've ever seen in a low season. I have never seen the economic contraction. Right now, the UK market is down 20%. The US market, the last report I saw for July suggests the US market is down by 34%. These are significant declines in terms of the output of our industry. And so if the data that is coming from the St. Lucia Tourism Authority suggests that our two main markets are down and that overall we are down in the double digits, it spells trouble for our industry. It is time for industry and policymakers to go back to the drawing board, to relook at what's needed, to ensure that we perfect and maximize the opportunities that are coming from traditional markets. The US and the UK, our two major markets, are crucial. We must repair the airlift situation. We must go to the airlines with a comprehensive strategy for growth and for inclusiveness and for prosperity, and to show them that St. Lucia is a destination of great opportunity for them to do business and for us to build a strong coalition of expansion for both our destination and their business. We must inspire the young people of this country to be more involved. We must change the services that we offer. There's so many other services that we can offer the world as a tourism service destination. And we will talk more about those offline. So we have just really begun to scratch the surface. We've got to expand faster. We've got to buttress investment. St. Lucia has got to become that place where it is the hub for investment in the Eastern Caribbean, both locally and foreign direct investment. Thank you very much.
So I want to thank you for the opportunity for being here today. I just want to say that as taxi drivers, we're faced with all the declines that you've spoken about, Dominic. As taxi drivers, we're faced with so many increases. So we have the increase in gas that we have to absorb. Our last price increase was in 2001. We have absorbed the increase in the cost of vehicles. We have also absorbed the cost of the increase in insurances and so many other things that we have to endure. So I'm saying, as taxi, and we have also lost the duty-free concession. And it's this government coming into office has done all of that to us taxi drivers. I'm saying maybe, it's time that we sit at the round table and we start to have discussions on the way moving forward for taxi drivers. Because while we don't come out and make a lot of noise like the minibus drivers did, they got an increase. I think we now need to start speaking about an increase for taxi drivers with all the cost incurs. So maybe, the government needs to start looking forward to have that conversation with us.
Inclusion, not exclusion. And you?
Thank you very much, Laura. I think we've had a wonderful discussion this morning, and I'm hoping that we can continue having such discussions in the near future. But I just want to say that tourism is the lifeblood of this economy, and St. Lucia is a premier destination in the Caribbean, and there is so much room for growth and expansion of the industry to really positively impact the lives and livelihoods of our people. And I'm hoping that the authorities will really put in the policies, the measures in place so that we can really grow the industry, we can really move out of this seasonality issue which is plaguing the industry. We can work with the airlines and and agencies to really bring tourism back to that level which it was to create opportunities for the people. Because if we don't, the consequences could be very dire on our health system, on our infrastructural system, education, and the social services and everything which we are vying to offer to the people. So I really, really want them to put the act together and put in the correct measures in place so that we can grow the industry and people can really actually see the benefit out of tourism throughout the year.
I really wish we had some graphics to show how tourism being the nucleus and how it touches so many different industries and sectors, because a lot of the time we don't really sit and appreciate how much tourism touches. It's like a ripple effect, right? But this is all the time we have. Remember, tourism is my business. It's your business. It's our business. Let's do everything possible to help it become sustainable so that we can have it and it can take care of us. Until next time, adieu.
This levy will not be imposed on any food items. This means, Mr. Speaker, that the cost of food should not change because of the levy.